Having studied core in my first year, I was in a much better position to take a more critical approach to some of the modules I studied in my second and third year. For example, in my econometrics modules in third year, I noticed the distinction and reconciled the differences between the structural and experimental approaches to estimation in various contexts. So having developed the skill of being able to realize that economics is in fact, in most cases, an art and there can be different approaches, meant that I was able to more closely and ably analyze the two distinct ways of estimating in markets and in econometrics in my final year at UCL.
Core has really helped me to understand economics by three things. The first one was the text, which was really easy to understand, and it was pretty elaborate, so everything was there. The second thing were the graphs, which helped me to graphically understand everything, and because it was an ebook, I could play with the graphs myself, put my own data into it, see how it works in time. And the third thing was the math, which was connected to it, but I could do it on my own later when I first understood the text and the graphs. Then I could dive into the math. So I wasn't overwhelmed in the beginning, and it all made perfect sense in the end.
Okay, so the great thing with core is that you have at the same time micro and macro in chapters, whereas in the second year you have both different subjects. But the great thing is that what you see in core will be studied in the second year, obviously in a deeper level. But for example, we were already introduced Schumpeterian growth, Walrasian equilibrium, and then we studied all of this in second year. And if you kind of remember what you did in the first year, it's very helpful.
I think core definitely prepared me for second year in many different subjects, but I think also the general aspect to it is important. I learned where to find databases and use this in research, how to look at graphs and how to interpret data better, the different ways in which it can be represented. And also it really got me excited about second year because I knew that we would be developing the tools necessary to better address the variety of topics that we talked about in first year. Furthermore, when writing essays in macro, it was very helpful to be able to draw upon the variety of examples that we learned in first year. For example, when discussing policy effectiveness and the size of the multiplier, there would be a lot you can say. For example, how fiscal stimulus can actually flow abroad through trade links. And as regards micro, I think in second year you're confronted with a much more mathematical approach. For example, to game theory, very formal and a little bit more dry. So having these examples dealt with in first year on a less formal basis, for example, finding Nash equilibria. What is a Nash equilibrium really? What is Pareto efficiency? Having that in the back of your mind and really understanding it also helps you learn the formal definitions in the mathematics much easier, I find.
I believe core will set me apart in the way I approach and analyze data or evidence. This is an important skill because many employers are looking for their graduates to be able to take something that's raw and primary and then turn it into tangible conclusions and recommendations that can have meaningful impacts. It's a rather hard skill to master, but I think core encourages students throughout the course of their time in the term to take different approaches, to discuss different ways, and hopefully by the end of it come up with a robust and meaningful sense of how to analyze and present conclusions.